Hey folks, so this week is primarily about reinforcing things that we've already learned. I want to make sure that you guys are very familiar and comfortable with bringing in text and styling it using the character and paragraph panels, and a few of the other little things that we've learned. However, I did want to show you one semi-new thing this week, where we did a little bit of color manipulation last week where we changed the tint of the headline. But I want to show you a little bit more about the swatches panel. All right, so I just have a text frame that I've created with some placeholder text where you go to type, fill with placeholder text. So you don't have to follow along unless you want to, but I just want to show you a little bit more about the swatches panel. Now I use swatches primarily. You can also use the color panel, but I'm used to using swatches, so that's what I'm going to show you with. Now there are a couple things that you need to keep in mind when you're dealing with color, and especially with type. Okay, objects, which we're going to deal with a little bit later, are a little bit easier actually because you don't have to worry about the text frame versus the text itself. So the main things you want to keep in mind are: do you have the frame selected, the container, or do you have the text itself? Okay, so right now, if I just click on a text frame, you're going to see that the formatting is going to affect the container because that one's highlighted. So if I were to click cyan, whoops, and you also have to worry about the stroke and fill, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute again, as I just learned. So if I have the fill active and my container is selected, just by clicking on the text frame and I hit cyan, it's going to apply that to the background, to the actual container, but not to the text. The text is going to stay the color that it is. However, if I Command Z to undo that, and I have the text frame selected and I click on this T, then anything that any color that I apply is going to be applied to the text and not to the container. All right, does that make sense? So that's a big thing to keep in mind is whether you have, and I will do this a lot, where I'll accidentally change the color of the container as opposed to the text, and I just have to undo it and then come up here and select the one that I actually want. Now, next to that, as I've already demonstrated, you also have to keep in mind whether you have the fill active or the stroke, and that's a tiny little icon, I understand. So make sure you're always aware of that. Or if you accidentally change one and not the other, it'll look a little weird. Don't leave it like it is. Go back and make sure you have the right thing selected. Now this, you'll notice, in the top of the swatches panel is the same as this over here at the bottom of your toolbar. So we have fill and then we have stroke. And remember that little white square with the red line through it means right now there is no stroke applied to our text. And a stroke is just an outline. And generally, you don't want strokes applied to your text unless it's really big and you have a contrast issue or something. So for the most part, you don't want strokes on text in the first place. But whenever you're dealing with other objects, you'll need to go back and forth between them. Now you'll notice if I click on the top box to get the fill, it's going to change over here as well. And if I click on stroke, it's going to change over here as well. So it's going to change everywhere. You just have to make sure you have which one you have active. So for example, if I have the text itself active and the fill, and I change the color to cyan, it's going to change that type color, right? If I have the text active and I have the stroke selected, and I click on that, it's going to put a cyan outline around my black text. And you'll see over here in the stroke panel, it says 1 point. Now I can click that up and make it bigger and bigger. That's not generally a good look. That's not generally what I want to do with my text. There's always, it's always a reason for breaking the rules, but for right now, this is not what I want. So select the text, and you always have to, so always, if you're not able to select what you want to select to adjust the color, always check this area right here to make sure whether you have your stroke or your fill selected, whether you have the type or the container selected. Okay, so I'm going to select this and then click on none to get rid of that. All right, so those are the two big things you have to keep in mind. Now also remember that anything you do over here, there's most likely a shortcut up here in the control panel. So for example, if I select this, I can click on the fill, and it's going to give me those same options right up here. You'll notice the fill and stroke, and then the container and the text, the tint, and then all the different colors. Same thing right down here, stroke, and it's going to have all the same thing. So I can adjust the stroke automatically, and in this case, you'll notice that it didn't adjust it to the text because it actually applied it. If I take the stroke up so you can see it better, it actually is going to apply it to the box itself. All right, so now we have a stroke on the box. So you can add strokes to text, to the frame, all sorts of different things. Just pay attention to where you're at in case it's not doing what you want it to do. Common problem. I do it all the time. I've been using this software for years. Now, you have a set number of colors that are here, very basic color palette. However, you can create your own swatches pretty easily. You can actually sample them from images and things. I'll show you how to do that whenever the time comes. But for now, you can do it just from this little flyout menu in the top right corner. If you click on it and go to New Color Swatch, or down here at the bottom, there's a little icon that says New Swatch. You click on it, and it actually looks like it's gonna, don't click on this icon to start out with because it looks like it actually just makes another swatch of the one you have selected. So go to the flyout menu and go up to New Color Swatch. All right, you'll see there's a lot of different options here. But basically, it's going to give you color mode, which we haven't really talked about. Color modes are based on what the purpose of this document is. CMYK is print color mode. That means you have 4 inks: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. All right, and those are the inks that are used to create all the printed documents that you see, all the full color images and magazines and books and all that kind of stuff. RGB is light-based color. That's what you see on screen. That's red, green, and blue. That's what you see on your TV, on your monitor, on your phone screen, all that kind of stuff. So if this is something that you're creating for web or for screen, you would use RGB color mode. Most things in InDesign are going to be created for print, so we generally stick with CMYK, and that's the default. Color type is process. You can actually use spot colors, which is a whole other thing. We'll get to that at some point. That's where we use Pantone colors or other different color coding systems. But for now, let's just say we have CMYK, and then you have the percentages. So for example, if 100% cyan is going to be this very bright blue, 50% cyan is going to be lighter blue. All right, and going back to color wheel, what happens when you put blue and red together? So cyan and magenta, type 100%. You can tab through these, hit tab, type 100%, tab. Oh, look, you get purple. All right, or for example, 0, and we'll tab down to yellow, type 100. What do you think that's going to be? Green. Okay, so now you can start to see, and if you take the black up a little bit, it will darken it. So you can create just about any color you want by dragging these different sliders around. So you get one that you want. Say I wanted to create an orange. I'll get magenta and yellow till I get an orange that I like. And then you can click OK. It's going to be named based on your CMYK values unless you uncheck this box, and then you can name it orange or whatever you want to name it. You click OK, and there you go. It's at the bottom of your swatches panel. So now I can make my box. I can add a stroke to my box, or I can make the background, whatever. Then I can apply it to anything I want to apply it to. Let's see. So now you can also, if you don't like that orange, you can click on it. And if you double click, it'll open it back up. Same thing for any of these colors. If you want to just change a color, if you double click on it, it'll open it back up in that dialog, and you can drag the sliders and adjust it. Click OK, and it'll change anything that color has been applied to. All right. Now, if I go back to the cyan, and you'll notice there's a tint box right here, and probably up here somewhere. Yeah, in the tint box right here, where you can, basically that's giving a percentage. So if I want it to be 50% cyan, I could double click on this and change that to 50, or I could just click on this and type in 50 in the tint box, and that's only going to apply it to that object instead of the actual color in our swatches panel. So hope that makes sense. It takes a little getting used to, but just make sure you keep in mind what you have selected right up here, and then know that you can create new swatches by this little flyout menu and go into new color swatch, the first option.